Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I have back with me our very special guest, Erin Wilkins. How are you doing? Welcome back.
Doing good. I'm happy that it's a nice, not windy day today. It's a good day for being outside.
You've been having a lot of wind out there?
Yeah, we've been having 30, 40 mile per hour winds and in the middle of trying to build my greenhouse, and that makes it slightly challenging. So.
Yeah. I just being outside in the wind is the one thing that's hard. I mean, even rain and snow or whatever, you can sort of tolerate as long as it's not windy. But as soon as that wind comes in, man, it's just hard to even breathe sometimes.
Yep, sure is.
So I understand today's a very special day in your world.
It is a special day. God has granted me one more year of life and hopefully many more.
Nice. And it's been just a little bit more than a year, I think, since we started talking on this podcast. I think I was looking back and I think we're right around our year anniversary date of sharing our time together out here.
Yeah, yep.
So that's good. So in the last year, since we've been talking about living healthy and healthy living and all the fun stuff involved, has anything struck you as, I don't know, maybe sometime life comes along and hands you something. Sometimes life comes along and takes something away. Sometimes life leaves you alone. What do you think? What do you think this year had for you, or took from you, or left you with?
I think the greatest lesson I'm going away with is learning the importance of drawing boundaries as healers, as people that want to heal others. It is so important for us to be able to continue healing by drawing those boundaries and letting ourselves heal as well, and recognizing within us when we need to just pause, take a break, recharge. A half-empty glass can't give much to somebody else. So I've been learning a lot of that, just balance and how important that is.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know a lot of, people. I think everybody's a healer in their own right. So when some people identify themselves as healers, I think they've recognized that they have that skill, which is great. And I think the people that don't call themselves healers just haven't figured it out yet, probably. But we're all healing and being healed at the same time. And I think, though, that those people that I've met that have, I don't know, acknowledged or expanded on or built, practiced, if you will, their healing arts, a lot of them tend to be, I don't know, empathic, or they tend to share the experience that the people they're working with are experiencing. And sometimes it's on purpose and they take it into them, and other times it just happens. And sometimes it's a talent or a gift, like, you do that soul fragment reading, and it's your ability that you've discovered that you can crawl inside somebody's spirit or experience and see things that maybe they don't even see themselves. A lot of times, people that call themselves shamans or whatever their self-appointed title is, they will take other people into a ceremony or a ritual or a practice and guide them into their own experience or their inner self or their higher self. We have all these words for, in my opinion, the same things. And so I don't, shoot, in this day and age, I don't even know how to call somebody a him or a her anymore and be right. So it's I don't get caught up in that thing, but the point is, a lot of times healers end up healing themselves or healing other people until they themselves are exhausted or sick or burnt out or just can't do it anymore. And I've watched it happen many, many times. Some of the people that have the most skills and talents to help other people find themselves just depleted and, you know, in their own mess. And then you go and talk to them and, you know, they know, because, you know, you always know, but we don't do, we don't always do what's best for us when we know what's best for us. You know, that's the heal thyself physician sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you've been going on in our discussions, you know, you clearly have a lot of empathic abilities, and, you know, you feel the things that other people are going through. Maybe sometimes you recognize, you know, like when we're going through it, we block our own shit out. Like we don't listen to ourselves. You know, we come up with excuses, the same excuses we give somebody else, we give ourselves. And we're like, hey, I'm good. I know that's good for everybody else, but me, I got this, you know? And then when the thing happens, you're like, yeah, I know, I knew, I just didn't do it. And, you know, and then we move on. So what do you, you know, how do you reckon with it? Like, you know, when you say your glass is half full or half empty, that's great as long as you're looking at your glass. But we don't have those little buttons on the side of our head where we go, oh, the battery level's here. Go ahead and plug in. You know? What do you do to recognize where you're at? Like, how do you take your own temperature?
I just do a self-assessment. Obviously there's, you know, physical pain is a sign of something going wrong, if there's that happening, but also just mental exhaustion or trouble focusing. I like to do color breathing every morning, and that's a good way to just kind of get an assessment on yourself. What chakra's out of alignment? Where are you going to need, you know, some extra strength that day? And am I too depleted in something to fully be able to give to somebody? And sometimes being able to say no is one of the greatest things that you can do, you know, for yourself as well as for others.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, there's all these old cliche sayings, right? You know, and you got to think about them, that at least at one point there had a meaning to it, right? You know, maybe some of them are outdated, and those things that they were referring to aren't things to us anymore because we don't, whatever, push rubber baby buggies anymore. But the point is, like, there's a adage that says when God closes a door, he opens up a window, or some other thing like that. I think that a lot of times those things happen. Like, I've done the same thing. I've just shut a lot of doors lately, and it's not so much because I was depleting myself. Well, it absolutely was. I mean, I've depleted myself to a point where I've got a fucking giant lump on my neck, and I'm working on that. And I realize that, you know, that has to do with all the things that I've taken in and allowed to be and tried to change and and I realized at one point that I just took on too much, took in too much, did too many things that just weren't working out. And all of a sudden, you know, my cells decided, well, I'll tell you what, you're not going to listen. Well, we'll go ahead and just do some crazy shit on our own, and maybe that'll get your attention. And so, you know, I'm working through all that. But the first thing I did when I realized, you know, hey, we got something going on here, is I shut the door, and I put up more filters and more screens, and I, you know, something like this project, I realize is important enough to do, where I closed down a lot of projects that just, you know, either people weren't participating, or it wasn't getting any kind of attention. So that to me says, well, if it's not interesting anybody, it's probably not, the world's not ready for it yet. And so, but in closing those things down, I noticed, you know, some great things have opened up, things that I never saw before, things that I never thought of before. And I think that, like, your brain is really good at adapting. We have what we call neuroplasticity, where your brain takes all this energy constant. It's a complete miracle going on inside of every one of our heads, believe it or not. And more neurons than there are stars in the universe are constantly rearranging themselves and making things work so that we can get what we want and need. And we don't realize it because it's just happening. And yet when we get tired and depleted, our brain is doing everything it can to shuffle this over here and open that and close that. And it's all happening. And, we might get a light headache or feel a little groggy or grumpy. And that's the symptom of it when, there's major reworking going on inside in the temple of our brain. So gotta wonder, if you get a notion, like, you have so much, I guess it's a gift of intuition. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. Like you feel things, you sense things, things. They don't necessarily put themselves up on a chart. I mean, you've got little tools like your little tuning fork things and the things that you use as tools, but ultimately you rely on your interpretation of them to tell you where you're going and where you're not going. So do you get these big red flags? Like, most people don't, but I'm wondering, like, I might get a little sense of, maybe I don't go there today. And when I get that little sense, me now today, I'm like, okay. In the past, I'm like, yeah, whatever, and then you go there and the thing happens. You're like, I didn't think I got a feeling that said don't go there. Maybe that's what that was about, So do you have like a referee that's like throwing flags at you, or do you just have that same little don't go there as everybody else gets?
Yeah, it's pretty strong for me. It's pretty much like you don't have anything to give. You can't. Because not only is it negative for myself, but I won't be as attuned as I need to be to help somebody else. So it's not fair. And I try to look at it that way, as I'm not going to be as effective for somebody if I'm not where I need to be. So it's hard. It's really hard to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you today. But anybody that knows what I'm doing and what I'm trying to help with understands. So it's been probably positive for me and for any of my clients when it's just not a good day. And it opens up for them to say the same thing. If there's a part of them where they're feeling like I'm just not ready for whatever we're going to deal with today, being true just to say, just postpone it a day or two. Quite ready.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. A lot of times, especially today, we live in this world of instant gratification and instant everything, and deliveries and ordering, and I want this, and why isn't it here yet? We have so much of that anymore. But I've learned that the timing of things, especially like, in an infinite world, time doesn't do the same things as it does for us that live in a linear world. And so we notice things like birthdays and cycles and, things that happen over and over again, and, days and nights and moons and all these things, because we live in this linear world where, time marches on for us. But in a universal world where whatever, yesterday's the same as tomorrow. And I think that the timing of things is where I think so many things go wrong. So we get stuck in this, we want it now. And so we'll push things out of the way to get it now. And then we didn't realize that, like, those things that we pushed out of the way were little seedlings that needed to grow roots. But since we pushed them out of the way, now they died and now they're not there anymore. And yep. I think that a lot of times just relying on timing. I've been doing the same thing when somebody's like, I realized a long time ago that, maybe 25% of what anybody says they're going to do, they actually do. And that even includes keeping appointments, I mean, I even set an appointment calendar, people set them, and then, I don't know, close to 50% of them, they get changed before it actually happens. So I'm like, okay, well, that at least gives you a spot on the map. And if you're going to follow through, then it gives you a way for it to happen. But mostly it's just a big filter that says, well, if it's not time, then that's cool. I just move it to another time. And I've learned that maybe the most thing it does, and I don't know, it's hard to say what's real, in the scope of an infinite world, but at very least, it takes the stress off of it. Like, instead of, think about it, like, what do people stress about the most in life? And it's like, oh, I'm late. right? I'm late. I'm late. I'm going to be
Yep.
late. I'm going to be late. Oh no, we're not going to make it. Oh, we're going to miss it. You know, that whole thing of, you know, I need to do this in order to get that. And I need it to happen right now. And I think that when you sort of, I don't know, let that float a little bit, I think maybe it creates a way for the right things to happen easier. And then
Mm-hmm.
I know that like almost every time it seems that something doesn't happen and I'm like, oh man, I thought that was going to happen. And then you look back and you're like, okay, well, at least that came out of it. And then you don't realize it, but that little thing that came out of it turned out to be that thing that you really needed. And it wouldn't have happened if that one thing would have kept going. So
Yeah, no, exactly.
I,
You miss when you're so focused on being later on one little thing, you almost get like pinpoint vision, and you miss the big pictures, you miss the unexpected blessings and joys that life has, but just because your focus is a little off.
well, it's again, another old adage, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? I mean,
Yep.
you know, it's a lot of there's truth to it. If you're, you know, spending all your time enjoying each tree one at a time, you'll never see the beauty that is a forest. But if you're spending all your time sort of looking at the forest, you'll probably never experience the beauty that is a tree. And they're
Sure.
both good. They're both wonderful, but maybe one of them is the thing you needed at that time. And, you know, I think that a lot of time it's your focal point. It's the thing that you're giving attention to that actually brings that perspective or that opportunity. You know, I think that there's like, we have a light and a magnet, I think, at all times that are turned on. And I think whatever we turn it on, point it towards, or we're thinking about, or putting our energy at, is putting it towards those things. So, like, you know, when you're thinking about, oh, wow, I learned this cool trick and I want to practice it and do better, all of a sudden, people that somehow either need to see that or know about it or do it better than you. It seems like for whatever reason, that thing just starts popping up and, you know, and it's not just the Orwellian, you know, mind reading crap that goes on electronically. It's actual, you know, some kind of a frequency, some kind of a thing, you know, you get a red car and all of a sudden you see red cars. You learn about, you know, some gardening trick and all of a sudden you see it over there and you see it over there and you're like, how does that even happen? You know?
Yeah.
And so I got to think that, you know, I think a lot of this really comes down to like where we're putting our thoughts and our attentions. I think that like when you do feel depleted, do you have like, if somebody comes to you and says, oh man, I'm just so tired, I'm just worn out, I'm so depleted or whatever, you've got a protocol that you give to people, right? I mean, I'm sure it's not the same for everybody, but you know, you read them and
Mm-hmm.
determine, well, you know, it's probably in this list of 10 things that makes people depleted. And you
Yeah,
probably got some of those that are needing to be addressed and you read them and do that. So do you do the same thing for yourself?
I do. Yep. It's taken many years to be able to do that. I think I used to I would go someplace and be so overwhelmed and just be like, oh my gosh, now I can't be around people for a couple days because I just picked up, I picked up too much stuff. I saw too much stuff. It was too overwhelming. But it's taken time to just hone that in of like, I'm not going to like see everything unless someone actually comes to me as a client, so I'm not just out there reading every person in the universe, you
Right,
know.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that gets a little difficult.
Yes.
Like you know, the movie sort of interpretation of that where the kid hears everything so loud because they're just paying attention to what is actually happening, you know, and it could certainly be overwhelming. And what are the things that, you know, help you to repair or just, you know, replenish? Like when you're having that day when you're just like, geez, I need a day off or whatever. What is it? What do you do for yourself?
Um, Definitely increase my fluids, probably number one, rest, and then just find something that I want to do. Sometimes your brain just needs a re-engaging.
Uh-huh.
Um, So,
Is there,
yeah.
is there, like a lot of times when people do meditations or whatnot, they go to their safe place or their special place that you create for yourself. And I know for me, I have my tools that I say, all right, I've got this going on. I need to go do that because that works for me. Do you have a specific tool or reset trick for you?
Oh, sorry, I was just moving locations here for a second. I think probably my biggest recharge is just being out in nature. Just being able to breathe, which is why I was a little late to our appointment, because I was soaking in just the sun and the smells and the breeze, and just recharging a bit. And so that's usually my first go-to is get out of the house, get away from any like, oh my gosh, I've got laundry or dishes or this or that, and just breathe for a bit and just let your senses feel things, out in nature.
Yeah, I think that that's a good one. We have a whole nonprofit that's based on therapeutic horticulture, and the idea behind it fundamentally is just what you said. If you don't do anything else or get anything else, just be outside and get some fresh air and some sunlight and be around some plants and water and living things. And if you don't do anything else, that'll probably help you somehow. That's sort of the blanket proposal there. And beyond that, you can get specific.
Yep.
Well, I think I agree with that 100%. So finally, I guess, it's your birthday. What are you going to do? What's your special treat? Even if we're not big birthday people, most people have some little special thing they do for themselves. What's your special gift?
Yeah, so tonight, I just invited a bunch of friends to a local Mexican restaurant just to hang out. I didn't want anything flashy, anything big, but just being able to see people that I might not be able to see all the time and just hang out for a few hours and just be with each other. So,
Nice. I like it.
yeah.
I think that's a great use of time, fellowship. I think the pandemic really struck a blow to our social needs, and I think that we're gonna
Yep.
feel the effect of that for generations to come. I think there's a couple
Yeah.
of years of isolation did not do us any good, and I'm glad that you're promoting community and fellowship. I think it's a big part of what makes us and keeps us healthy. So on that note, I want to wish you a very happy birthday, and you're under no obligation, but do you care to disclose your physical age?
I am turning 47 today.
All right. Well, you're doing 47 an incredible justice, so that's good. Everybody who's approaching that, you've got a lot of potential. If you can pull it off like that, I'm sure everybody's going, oh, wow. So good job. Good job. Awesome. All right, Erin. Well, again, happy birthday. I'm glad you were able to come out and join us. And, a year of conversation. I think we've all learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to continuing as we go.
That'll be awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, this has been the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and we will see you next time.